The the name choosing system that I have become familiar with in Asia, um, that the whole idea of changing the name is in regard to changing the lineage.
Mm.
So when you join a group or an organization that has a lifestyle or a lineage change, it's often associated with a name change
Mhm.
also. Uh, and so uh, the wise old ones who are choosing the name will choose the name for the new ordinate in one of two ways, which wind up being the same thing. And the one or two ways is that either this is a characteristic we see in this guy, or it's a characteristic that we wish we did see in this guy.
Mhm.
And so what that means is that this winds up being kind of a fortune telling or a destiny,
Mhm.
because the point is that when one gets the name, uh, it might have some value. That many people are given spiritual names here, there, and yonder, and they don't even bother to change their name. They continue to use their given name
Mhm.
and don't even bother to change the name. To where others, um, that even if they disrobe, they will not give up that spiritual name.
Mhm.
But it means something, okay? And there's a lot of in Asia that once they take that ordained to name, they use that. Some of them even change it legally.
Mm.
And so, in that regard, sometimes it's hard to even find out what the name of the born to name of the guy or the legal name. You don't even know what it was because he doesn't use it at all.
Right.
It's meaningless to him. He's left that lineage, almost like you don't really care what your name was in a prior birth. Say you were some village idiot in 3 BC. Do you care now what his name was?
Mhm.
No, it doesn't mean anything. It's too far in the past. It's meaningless. So um, that issue about the spiritual name is something that one can grow into, or to magnify because they already have that trait. And so a name like Dhamma the word Vitu, which actually has the word, you can see the word vision kind of in there. Okay. And so Dhamma means one who is a knower of the Dhamma. Uh, just like also in the Pali, Loka would be the knower of the world.
Mhm.
This is something that is, in fact, spoken of about the Buddha, but only in the regard that he knows enough about the world, at least the world of the planet Earth, as
Mm.
opposed to the world of human beings.
Right.
That the world of human beings is dangerous. And that's all we really need to know of the world. But some people get way off into thinking that it's magic in the sense that the Buddha knows every fish in the sea and that kind of thing by
Mhm.
name.
Right.
That's not what it means. So, knower of the Dhamma or Dhamma Vitu, and one who has a name like that is going to wind up being a polished scholar.
Mhm. So what does Rato mean then?
The word Rato actually is a class of words like Nandi, and that it has to do with pleasure,
Mm.
and that all of those words, joy, pleasure, bliss, can either have a sexual connotation or another kind of connotation, or it can have a spiritual connotation. All right. And so, in that regard, the word rato has to do with the quality of uh, the fruit of the path of Sotapanna.
Mm.
All right. That there are 7 stages of Sotapanna. I didn't, by the way, even know this until I discovered it in the literature, and I howled with laughter when I saw this years after they had given me the name. That this is actually the explanation that Dhammarato is one who delights in the Dhamma,
Mm-hmm.
is delighted by the Dhamma. He's in the Dhamma. He's completely, now we could use the word immersed, but I don't think that that's a really good idea, because that word immersion is what happens when you're drowning.
Mm. Sure.
Right, but it does have to do with the quality of the attitude of the noble mind.
Mm.
That's what the word means, rato, Dhammarato.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can play with it and take the O and separate that out, like Dhammarat. Oh, but it's a common name in Thailand, and that it has that kind of value. Is that it pushes one into being delightful.
Mm-hmm. And that delight in the Dhamma is one of the 7 stages of Sotapan, is it?
Actually, it's the fruition stage. It's the 7th knowledge. That, in fact, if you like, we can go ahead and talk about those 7 stages if it's of any interest to you.
Yeah.
Okay. The first stage is actually the practice that Westerners have come to know as meditation, but a better word would just use the word practice,
Mm-hmm.
because this is not meditation. That meditation is a Catholic thing. That what we're doing here is we're practicing a set of skills, and that we have any moment we have the opportunity to practice those skills. We don't have to go off someplace and sit down in the corner or in a meditation hall or anything. But what the Buddha did recommend was going into seclusion, to get away from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? Because being around other people means that you're either mentally or verbally sharing each other's malicious gossip and lies and culture. But when you get away from it, go to the forest, to the foot of a tree, to an empty hut, to a pile of straw, and sit down and start being aware of what's going on around you and in you. That's the whole Satipatthana. In fact, there's kind of, when you get an overall vision or a view of the Satipatthana, you'll understand how the Buddha put Anapanasati together as a method of practicing the Eightfold Noble Path. So the Satipatthana has to do with, originally, it was the elements. Now chemists have gotten 92 and they're still counting. But in the old days, they were very accurate. Humans were accurate then. They just needed more information and more discovery, but they already understood elements in the sense of that there is solid things, earth. Then there is liquid things like water that flow and move. And then there is a fire. And then the last one is the smoke or the air. So these are the 4 elements, and you can actually see that in physics according to temperature and energy. The things that are solid, like water would be solid when it's cold, even hydrogen, you get it cold enough, it'll get solid.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a stage in between where it's a liquid. And then there is when it gets hotter than that, it goes into a gaseous state or air. But if you get things hot enough, then the molecules start to break down, and you have a free floating, what's called a plasma state, which is truly on fire. And so this fits actually with modern physics quite well.
Mm-hmm.
No problem at all here so far, except that the Buddha recognized that all of the meditators of the time were meditating upon the Satipatthana in various ways, but only in one context. In other words, they would have mud disc or leaves that were stitched together. And they would look at that object and then close their eyes and recreate it and make what's called a nimitta, or
Mm-hmm.
an internal image of it. You can also do that with water. That, in fact, Hermann Hesse's book about Siddhartha, he winds up being the riverboat man, just
Right.
listening to the river, just listening to the water flow. Okay, so that's the water meditations. And in more common times, you would call that crystal gazing, crystal balls, that kind of stuff is normally associated with water. But fire has always and remains traditionally the strongest meditation. That, in fact, kids sitting around a campfire
Mm-hmm.
will get drawn right into that fire,
Right.
that candle gazing, and that kind of thing. Is comes out of the dark past. And then the last one is sky gazing or nighttime gazing, stargazing, that kind of stuff. And in the old days, that was the best television in town, was to go out in the night and just, wow. And they marveled over it. Well, now with electricity, we hardly have any sky above.
Mm-hmm.
Even here at my house, there's very few stars, but I can go right over to the Watt, which is only about maybe 400 meters. But that's high enough to get away from all of the light pollution below. And we have a starkly brilliant sky here because we're out on an island here, and there's no cities around. Um, the closest city is more than 100 kilometers. Uh, so anyway, that whole idea then, the Buddha said, yes, this is all well and good, but it doesn't lead to liberation,
Mm-hmm.
including all of the jhanas and everything that guys can get in by doing this kind of stuff. And so what he did, the process that he went through was turning the Satipatthana from the outside to the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard, the body now is the physical element, and our feelings are the fluid element,
Mm-hmm.
and the fire is the mind. And when we mean that, we're talking about the state of mind and the condition of the mind, and let us say the source for thoughts. For instance, if you're angry, you're going to be thinking thoughts in a certain direction.
Right.
But if you're feeling really guilty about something, then you're going to be thinking of thoughts in another direction, even if it's about the same event. So the fire then is the state of mind that we're in. We need to start investigating these states of mind. And then the thoughts themselves, the incremental thoughts that they float in and out of, those also should be investigated. So everything is to be investigated, except that when we get further enough along so that we can completely control the thoughts that we have and direct the mind, then the objects that need to be investigated are the characteristics in the sense of anicca, dukkha, anatta, the fading away, arising, passing away, and all of that. But we're not talking about the arising and passing away of the physical things around us, but
Mm-hmm.
rather the arising and the passing away of the mental states themselves and the thoughts themselves and things like this. All right, so you've got these two Satipatthanas there. And so we begin to practice with that internal Satipatthana, going through the Eightfold Noble Path in the process of developing skills. And as we develop the skills, what that means is that we begin to develop taking control over the mind and beginning to put it in a state that's useful, valuable, and wholesome. In other words, we brighten the mind, or we gladden the mind, and we do that by talking to ourselves to gladden it up and brighten it up. And we also take control of the breath and start breathing more long and deep and satisfying breathing. And then along with that comes the feelings that will come along with that. You see, so that's the way that it works. It's basically it's mind and mental objects, changing the mental objects to change the condition of the mind so that then we can work with the body and change the condition of the body so that we feel really relaxed physically. And now we can begin to feel good on an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, when we begin to practice this over and over and over and over and over again, a certain kind of feature starts to arise that we put into the package, and that is confidence that we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come to the position that this stuff works so well that it doesn't matter how obstructed the mind gets or what situations I get myself into, that I know that I can get myself back into reality, that I can come out of my trash mind.
Mm-hmm.
I gladden my mind up and I can feel good. I do not have to go around feeling afraid. I can feel good. I don't have to feel uncomfortable. I can feel comfortable. I don't have to feel dissatisfied. I can teach myself to feel satisfied. When we do that, that confidence comes up to the point that no matter what happens, I know that I can clean out the mind and get the mind back to a state of be here now and be in the present moment. This is the first knowledge, the Buddha says. And then he says, in this first step, this first knowledge on the path is supramundane. It is a factor of the path. It is noble, and it is not shared by ordinary people.
Mm-hmm.
This, in fact, could be the point, because this is the first step on the noble path. This could demark the beginning of, or actually the change of lineage, because this is where the Buddha says, this is not something that ordinary people can do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because what this is actually, if you think about it, this is the lion club, a cub, the lion cub. This is the budding lion, the lion who knows that he can handle anything, which means the change of an attitude from being a victim into a winner,
Mm-hmm.
into a can do. Does not matter what happens inside my mind, I can clean it out. Now that's a can do attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the first step on the path. That's the first knowledge. The second knowledge, uh, let us say it's actually going very quickly through it, that the second knowledge is actually the full control of the first jhana, so that you can get yourself into the first jhana and stay in the first jhana. This would be the second knowledge on the path, is control of the mind. That not only is the first one on the path, is that I can control the mind. Now we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Then, uh, then in fact, there's another way of looking at it, and that is that you've heard of Sila Samatipanya in that order. Sila Samatipanya. This first step of knowledge that I can clean out my mind, that would be the Sila,
Mm-hmm.
because now we know that we can separate ourselves from the world, that we can get away from the world, we can rise above the world.
Right.
Okay. And then the first jhana would be the samadhi, because now we have all the factors gathered together. That the word samadhi does not mean concentration. It means gathering together the factors.
Mhm.
And the factors of the first jhana is number one, back to that first point of the first knowledge, is the removal and the eradication of the hindrances, which would be also the removal and eradication of all unwholesome thoughts,
Mhm.
so that we only have one wholesome thought after another wholesome thought, which would be applied and sustained wholesome thinking, factor of the path, as well as sukha, which is not only in the Anapanasati Sutta a skill to be developed, but it's a factor of first jhana.
Mhm.
And then this can-do attitude, that winner, that exhilaration, that wow, is the piti, and that is also to be developed in the Anapanasati Sutta and a factor of the first jhana. So mastery then of the first jhana would be the second on the path, the
Mhm.
second knowledge that is, in fact, supramundane, a factor of the path, noble, and this is certainly not held by ordinary people.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, the next one is purification of the view. The third is the purification of the view in the sense that once we have the mind set into the first jhana, now we begin to do a real investigation that is completely wholesome,
Mhm.
because everything that we see is wholesome because all of our mind states are wholesome.
Mhm.
So looking now is wholesome, and in the process of doing that, we also see what um, begin to see how the mind works. But in relationship of that, by investigating the factors of the first jhana and investigating the factors of the Eightfold Noble Path and how we get this, we come to the strong conclusion of the knowledge of what is and is not the path of life or the path of the Buddha or the way that I'm going to live. This is now my lifestyle, okay? The knowledge and vision beyond a shadow of a doubt. Number one, that's the point, is that at this point, doubt is eradicated. We've got it. It's locked into place. This thing is locked and loaded, is the way of saying it. Okay. Not a doubt about it. We understand now what the path is.
Mhm.
And that it's also a knowledge and vision of what not only is the path, but what is not the path.
Mhm.
And there's a whole lot of stuff in Buddhism that's been tacked on that is not the path of the Buddha. Okay,
Mhm.
all sorts of magical beliefs and rebirths and reincarnations and magical powers and jumping in the dirt and swimming around and reading people's minds and doing all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But in fact, reading people's minds is generally nothing but cold reading
Mhm.
that magicians do.
Yep.
It's a skill to be developed. It is not magic.
Mhm.
Want to go around reading people's minds, I don't think that you want to spend your life doing that, because uh, danger of being exposed for one
Yeah.
thing. And so what also is not the path is following all the rules. That in fact, this is what we begin to see, that Sila Bhatta Paramasa is my attachment to, or when I say attachment to the rules, what I'm actually saying is everything that I've ever heard from the outside world.
Mhm.
All of what human society teaches each other is a set of rules. And look at it. How many billions of people go around following the rules and fitting into society, and how many of them are completely free?
Right. It.
And so following the rules, and we understand that the rules that are made are to be investigated, not followed.
Mhm.
That things need to be investigated deeply to see really what's going on. And so this is what means then is clear vision, is when the mind is really solid and fit for work, and we can see what's really going on because we're paying attention and looking. We see things that other people don't see. This is something that ordinary people can't do.
Mhm.
And because of that, it seems to be magical powers, where in fact it's just the power of observation or the power of be here now.
Yeah.
But one of the things about this third step that's so amazing is that now the new student who is seeing the knowledge and vision of what is and is not the path, he is determined to get on that path for sure this time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And part of that has to do with the investigation of our own wrongdoings, because this is actually the change of lineage is a change of attitude. And that humanity has the attitude is that, oh no, I don't want to get caught for what I've done wrong. I might get punished. Okay. And so our society teaches us to lie and to hide from our wrongdoing and our mistakes. But with this understanding of the new part of the path, what's really going on here is that we recognize that my dedication is not to hide and get away with it. Right now, I'm going to stand up, confront it, and conquer this dukkha and get rid of it, which means I will use anything in the service of removing the dukkha, including turning my wrongdoing into learning experiences. Now, one of the qualities of that means that if you really learn from a mistake that you made, you don't make that mistake anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's not the same thing as Catholic confessional. To go in and confess to the priest, they give you penance or price to pay, some Hail Marys, or maybe $100 million. They've got all kinds of plans for all kinds of people.
Yeah.
But the point is that go and send some more.
Right.
Is the point that we absolve you of your sins, but we do not give you the tools to be free from the sin.
Just
You
great.
just get to take, like you get to take a daily dump
Yeah.
that you still are full of shit. To where what this is now dedication to rehabilitating oneself, that we really do want to look at what we have done wrong so
Yes.
that we can make corrections, that we listen to criticism, but we have to put that criticism into context of, is this guy criticizing out of jealousy or ignorance, or does he see something that's useful, valuable, and wholesome that should be looked at? And so we look at it like that, in the sense of we're here to get rid of the dukkha, and we will use our mistakes. That in fact, in the sutta, it should be said, is that the entire Patimokkha ceremony, the once a month and in some places once every 2 weeks, the Patimokkha ceremony is all about this. This is the confessional, in the sense that once the Patimokkha ceremony begins, all of the monks in that ceremony have not now already gotten over and are absolved of all of their wrongdoing, with the intention of being finished with it.
Right.
And so, and this is part of the ceremony. When you understand what's going on, like the Buddha says, "Oh monks here, do you see anyone in this assembly who has committed one of these offenses?" And the monks will always look around and then say no. Now, also during the reading of the Patimokkha, it's expected that if a monk has actually committed one of those offenses, he is to acknowledge it right then in public. Yeah, me, I raised my hand. Okay. Any liars here? Yep, I'm one. Anybody had a sniff of booze? Yeah, I did that too. And so this public knowledge, rather than hiding and trying to get away with it, is a real mental change of lineage. To feel like that you're open and among friends who are there to help you get over your crap, rather than to blame you for still being in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
because this is a major part of the path. In fact, this is kind of the tilting point. You can think of a teeter-totter or a balance scale, and when you put enough on this side, the thing tilts from one to the other.
Mhm.
All right. So this point, this middle point of 7, this number 4, is actually the balance point where it tips the Sotapanna out of the path of Sotapanna into the fruit of Sotapanna. It's sort of like over the hill. Everything up to this point is how all has been uphill climb, and this last fourth one is quite a climb, quite a step to take.
Right.
Mentality that my mistakes are my friends, not my
Yeah.
enemies.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a load off.
Man, I feel like I've been like taking that attitude on in stages sort of over the last couple of years here. Just like because it's more, yeah, and it's just like more and more. It's like, oh yeah, what if this is for my benefit? And then, you find the next thing that the mind is like tries to make an exception out of and be like, oh, but not that. And it's like, nope, actually that too.
hmm Okay, so the fifth one is as one grows in this, they become dedicated to the Dhamma. Dedicated in the sense that they finally know now what their moment by moment life is going to be, is the investigation of the Dhamma. One of the examples is that even though the monk has duties at the wat, like sweeping the path, he is sweeping the path with his mind focused on the Dhamma.
Hmm.
All right. And another example in that one is that a mother cow who has a baby calf, though the mother cow is grazing, she is keeping an eye on that calf
Right.
so that if any predator comes, in fact, she's even going to be standing and guarding the calf to make sure that the most likely place for enemies to come from, she's going to be on the side of the calf to protect the calf, right? And so mom's always got that little calf in mind. Whatever she's doing, she's got an eye on that calf. This is how we begin to do the Dhamma. It doesn't matter what we're doing, this is Dhamma.
Hmm.
That there's no longer any separation. Everything we're doing is Dhamma. And then the step 6 there means that we become eager to find the Dhamma, eager to listen to the Dhamma, eager to find a teacher who knows the Dhamma, who is teaching it. And so we become eager to hear the Dhamma, eager to find the Dhamma. We're really, really eager. We can call this eager, enthusiastic, and we can also hear words like devotion, dedication. But that's not what we're doing. There's no reason for devotion because devotion is to something or dedicating to something. We're just enthusiastic. That's the difference, okay? It's eager, it's enthusiastic, it's, yeah, we got this. All right. Going back to that first part of, yeah, I can control the mind. It's now, yeah, let me get a really big load of the Dhamma. I mean, wow, look what's going on here. Okay. And that's step 6. That's that enthusiasm. And then step 7 is the full on delight of the full understanding that this is it. I've got it. All
Hmm.
right. And not only that, but I'm dedicated to this triple gem, this brand new prize, and I'm delighted with it because I know that I can't lose it. Got it now. Okay. So this is actually now the full on path, fruit of the path of the Sotapanna, which is different than the kind of Sotapanna that you find on Reddit.
Hmm.
They've got Sotapanna, but they've got their definition of Sotapanna that has to do with experience. And so they like this experience, they like that experience, and they think that that's meditation and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
Generally, those experiences that we're talking about here, that some people say, and in fact, I've heard people say, "Oh, my teacher told me that because I had that experience that I was Sotapanna."
Right.
But generally, we finish with those kinds of experiences before we ever come to the point of, I can do this,
Uh-huh.
right? Generally, what happens when the students have an experience, they start wanting that experience again.
Mm-hmm.
So they're back into want, they're back into being a victim.
Right.
And that this is a very, very strange catch-22, that anything spiritual that you want, because you want it, you don't have it. That wanting is actually like a tattoo of non-entry.
Yeah.
Is that in fact, if you want something, it's like sticking your finger in the inkwell, like they do in the Middle East for voting, and you go up to vote again, and your finger's got this ink all over. Sorry, you can't vote. You've already got ink all over your finger. Well, sorry, you can't have joy in it because you've got the ink of greed for joy.
Yeah. I mean, sort of the beginning for me of like seeing the experiences that I judged as negative as like an important part of the path was that where it's like I sort of realized that these like the sort of peak experiences you're talking about, that those helped like increase my faith, but they ultimately it was like engaging with the other stuff that produced changes, that made
Mhm.
my life better and easier, that all those like interesting experiences did were like I mean, I guess they confirmed something, but they didn't bring about any like lasting change.
Well, that's it. Is that when we have an experience, then we want that experience again.
Mm.
And so we've added the desire for that experience into the mix. And that what happened was is that by wanting that experience again, that really meant that the student wasn't really, really observing what he did and how he got himself into that experience.
Mm-hmm.
That I learned that kind of early on. Won't go into the details of it, but I investigated the second time. I wanted that,
Mm.
and it didn't happen because I wanted it. And then I had to reflect, well, wait a minute, what did I do the first time that got me into that? And let me repeat that procedure. And I kept doing it, and it came back again. So
Yeah.
that was the way that when we're wanting something, we can't get it. That we have to stop wanting and to start going back into the procedure of uh, the wholesome thought. Now, at that time when I had done that, I did not even know that I was actually following the teachings of the Buddha. I didn't even have that clue then. I'd known about Buddhism, but not not this point about that you have to keep gladdening the mind and keep gladdening the mind and keep gladdening the mind over and over and over again to develop that habit of gladdening the mind and taking deep breaths and having thoughts about the breath and that kind of thing. And you just keep doing that over and over again, and you can have these experiences again. Learning not only to have those experiences, we could call those experiences kind of sukha,
Mm-hmm.
kind of pleasure. Um, uh, and the interpretation then that the mind itself, when we feel that way, we wonder why, and then we invent something or we concoct a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it winds up being past life experiences. Sometimes we're sitting on the lap of God. Sometimes, oh, this is John, all kinds of things like that, where in fact, no, it's just a momentary feel good. And when we start trying to figure out why I feel good, now the mind is back into turmoil again, confusion, doubt, all of that.
Right.
And so these
Gyra.
experiences don't last long.
Yeah. So something I've been noticing lately since I've been trying to practice with this idea of gladdening the mind is like I've been catching moments of dissatisfaction and like kind of breathing and like letting that go, but I haven't like yeah. So I feel like there's some ability to like release the dissatisfaction, but I wonder if you could say more about like bringing about like the actual like the gladdening. Is that related or is that something different?
Well, you're bordering on asking the question that some students ask in the sense of, yeah, I've got joy, but I want more joy.
Hmm.
Let's get more joy. Okay, well, that's being dissatisfied with the joy you have, rather than let us say working with, and we can actually in this context talk about concentration or focus
Mhm.
on the satisfaction itself. This is good enough.
Mhm.
Allow yourself, this is okay right now. I find, isn't it all right? Really? I mean, can't we just allow it to be okay finally? I mean, it's not wonderful, but it's nice enough. It's good enough.
Mhm.
It's not suffering. You see, the Buddha never promised anybody super duper bliss.
Right.
Nobody, he didn't promise heavens or whatever like that. And he promised the removal of suffering, the removal of dissatisfaction.
Right. So that okay.
So
So
just
yeah.
so let's get into a state of just a tiny little bit of I'm okay, I'm satisfied,
Mhm.
and start working with that and letting that seed grow.
Right. So it's yeah, letting go of the dissatisfaction and then not wanting or needing anything to take its place, but realizing that that's
Yes, that right now it's okay.
mm,
Just sitting here watching the breathing and everything is okay. I don't have to change anything. That everything is fine. No worries. Okay. Joy in the sense of nothing to do and no place to go. Everything is okay. Well, relaxed. And so that's an element too. Step 4 of Anapanasati is just let the body relax. Relax and be comfortable. There's kind of a balance there. In sitting meditation, the most relaxed posture is sitting up straight. Because if we're bent over, gravity is pulling us down and causing back pain and back muscles. If we stood up too strong, then that means that we're using muscles that we don't even need to use. But if we're just really sitting up straight, then everything is easy. Everything is fine. No problems. And that's the way to practice is everything is okay. Everything's all right. No worries. So we just keep practicing that way, making sure that the body is comfortable. If the body is comfortable, it will relax. If the body is uncomfortable, then the mind's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be in a state of aversion. And so getting the body comfortable is a good thing. And yet in Western meditation, they think that sitting long periods of time has some value, and they wind up sitting in pain because the body gets stiff.
mhm.
And so now they start looking for cushions. I used to have a Lord Jesus Christ that will save me. Now it's just 7 or 8 cushions, one under each knee, one under each buttocks, and recognizing that no, this is a mental exercise of relaxing the body, and sitting up straight is a good thing to do, and just let things relax. But we don't need to practice so long that the body starts to hurt.
Nice. So how would you practice like if there's some discomfort in the body based on like a past action like overeating or eating the wrong thing or something?
Ah, well, that's mindfulness in the sense of, wow, I look what happened.
Right.
Cause and effect. All right. In that regard, I would say uh, walking it off would be a good thing to do.
Mm.
If you're uncomfortable just sitting, normally you want to just sit for digestion of food, but if you're agitated and stomach growling and whatnot like that, then go walking.
Sure.
And in fact, that's what they teach at Watsu and Moke. at the retreats that they do there, they don't have people sitting for a long time, only about 30 minutes. But even then, the instruction is that they can move, they can stand up, even walk outside if the body is tense or tight. That always the point is comfort.
Mm-hmm.
But most meditation practices in the West, with the retreats and what all, it winds up becoming a competition who can sit the longest. I've been there, done that too. So you can see now that this practice of anapanasati brings about the jhana factors, as well as this first step of getting to the point that actually that first stage is like the wow factor of, wow, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a deeper level of satisfaction, because now this is the change of attitude. That first step on the path is a change of lineage, because it's a change of attitude. From, oh, poor me, who can I get to help? And the hot dog, I can do this myself. Wow, what an attitude that is.
Yeah.
That's a main change of attitude, is that I can do this. Because I got all the, well, not necessarily yet. We don't know that we've got all the tools, but we do know that we can clean out the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good kind of stopping point for the Buddha to talk about it, that this is that first step that is noble. It is super mundane. It's not part of the world. And above all, it's not held by ordinary people. And so I invite you to change your lineage. Become a winner, become a lion, or at least this lion cub. That attitude that we can handle this.
Yes.
And so these are the 7 stages. And that last one that we started this conversation with, step 7, is the Dhammarato.
Mm-hmm.
Complete delight in the Dhamma. But it's a long set of steps. Those steps can be gone through fairly easily and quickly, but they are skills that have to be developed.
Right.
When Zen talks about sudden enlightenment doesn't happen like an automobile accident when somebody's not watching what they're doing.
Right.
Okay, that sudden kind of enlightenment is actually a culmination of the skills that have come together, almost as if he had all the skills but one, and he was missing a piece of the puzzle. And
Yeah.
then he gets it, and finally it's complete, and he gets it.
It reminds me of what they say about like the years of work that go into becoming an overnight success.
Precisely. That's exactly correct. But it's actually, rather than doing it that way, because that's actually in a way a hard way. The easy way is to start to practice correctly from the very beginning. Because normally what the piece of the puzzle is missing, a lot of people develop sati, that in fact sati is the primary skill that is developed with the Mahasi method. But their noting that they're doing is not the kind of noting that the Buddha would want. He's looking more for an investigation with discernment rather than just noting. Right. So basically what they're practicing is the development of the skill of sati. To where anapanasati has more to it than that. It has the skill of the discernment as well as the skill of the right effort to make the change from unwholesome to wholesome, to actually gladden the mind, to take control. Okay, that in one way of talking about it, that this is a practice where you really have skin in the game.
Yeah.
This is not a spectator sport, the way that many people think. And in fact, that's what you would see in Mahasi method of the noting is a spectator sport. Just notice what's there,
Right.
okay, or notice what the body is doing. Here, we're not spectators. We are the sport.
Mm-hmm.
This is contact sports. Put skin in the game. This you have to actually take control of the breath, take control of the mind, put in it what you want to have in it rather than what just steeped in over the years. And so when you know that you can do that, when you know that you can put in the mind what you want to have in the mind, anytime you want to, you can put into the mind the right stuff. That's the first step of the path. That's the first knowledge, is when you know that you can change your mind anytime you want to.
So yeah, the other thing that I've noticed practicing this is that like it's easier to do when there's more energy present.
Actually, that's where enthusiasm comes in.
Mm.
That when you're enthusiastic about something, the effort is easier. If you
Mm.
have no enthusiasm, it's really a lot of effort.
Right.
But when you're enthusiastic about, this is easy enough.
Yeah.
Sort of like the old song, he ain't heavy, he's my brother.
Right. It's just yeah, like sometimes because it's just there's like those recurring like habits of like the mind to like go off in other directions or try and find something to want or to be distracted about, and it seems like the like to just the perseverance of just like, oh nope, nope, actually we don't need to do that, everything's fine now. Like it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that energy is there, and sometimes it's more just like, I trust that I will return to this later, but right now.
Yeah, well, you don't have to trust that you will return later. In fact, you might want to trust that, hey, I don't have to do that next time either. I don't even have to do this much of it. I can let the whole darn thing go. And if you say, no, I want to remember this thought so that I can write it down in a book or something, then you can say, look at that too. There's more clinging. And I could, instead of thinking about clinging to that thought, I could just, because that's part of the trust, that you can trust it. Of course you can remember it.
Yeah,
You
right.
think of it now, you can think of it later.
Yeah.
Let it go. What you eventually write is not what you're thinking anyway.
Mhm.
So why should you not only think about it, but then say, I should remember this?
Right.
No, you don't have to do that. You can just say, hey, I can let all that go. I don't need any of that.
Right. And then yeah, so the discernment of like when it is like okay to act or when it's just something to let go of is like the quality of the mind that's motivating it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. This is what we're looking for. This is what we mean by the investigation of the states. That's the way of saying the quality of the mind. Keep investigating. What's the quality of the mind? What is it right now? Let's let's go dancing. You know.
Yeah.
And so we begin to notice the quality of the mind. That's a very good use of the term rather than investigation of the states, because nobody knows what that means. But yeah, how good is it right now? Is it good enough, or is it trash mouthing somebody else, or telling lies about something, or
Right.
using harsh language, or wanting something it doesn't have, all that kind of stuff? Or is the mind in a satisfied place?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that's really really been coming home for me is like a very healthy, I think, distrust of like, oh, if I'm agitated, like if I'm upset at someone else and like I want to like do something to make it right, it's like actually, no matter how good the story my mind is telling me, I don't trust acting from that energy. I don't think it's gonna bring about anything that I want.
Yes, that in fact, thoughts of revenge or getting back at someone generally is a hindrance.
Yes.
Let's get ourselves into a good state and feeling really, really good and happy. And then when thoughts of that person come up, they will be thoughts of kindness.
Yes. Yeah.
But right now, if I think about him, it will not be kind. So let's not think about him.
Yeah.
Let's get our mind into kindness, be kind to ourselves, and then we can let it spread out from there.
Mhm.
And so dwelling and thinking about someone else or intentionally telling yourself that you should love him
Mhm.
or may all beings be happy and that kind of stuff is dangerous because it's not actually doing the investigating of the underlying feelings that we need to investigate that thought feeling complex, recognize how we feel because we know that we can change that.
Yes.
So it's all a matter of investigation. This is what the Satipatthana is all about investigation. And when you have that position of, I know that I can remember to investigate all of this stuff and come out and investigate it to the point that I can come out of my own crap into the reality of the moment. Because the reality of the moment is almost always marvelous enough.
Right. It's just so funny how many tricks the mind has to lure you back into it's like even in this moment I can sense searching for more I don't know more wisdom or more Dhamma or more knowledge rather than just no this it's fine right now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is good enough. Great. Well, Andrew, let's bring this call to a close then.
Yeah.
And this is something I've really enjoyed talking about it. I like to review this stuff with the students because it has enormous value.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.